I gotta say Swedish names now. Sweden has one of the most prosperous, peaceful, and low crime reputations in Europe. So whether you're investigating really weird murders or learning about Sweden's incredible recycling program that recycles 99% of house waste, or discovering its beautiful, colorful, and fascinating architecture, there's something in Sweden for everyone. And since both Notch and PewDiePie were born here, a legendary Minecrafter who brought the game back, and the man who created Minecraft himself, it makes sense that we would do everything we can to build the homeland of Minecraft in Minecraft. Here's everything Sweden and Norway, Finland, and Denmark have ever done. Let's first take a look at these Finnish city blocks and beautiful churches completed in the city of Kristianstad. This town didn't exist until the neighboring town in the 1600s was burned down entirely. And get this, the king that did it, Gustav II Adolf, apparently burned it down for no other reason than his own pleasure and amusement. I guess there was a greater reason for him having Adolf in his name. This is some straight up Star Wars Sith Lord type of evil shit.
Wipe this pathetic planet from the face of the galaxy.
The beautiful buildings on display in this area are the Kristianstad Theater and the Holy Trinity Church, or in Swedish, the Heliga Trefaldighetskyrka. Now check out Hässleholm. The first thing you gotta know about this place is that the most distinctive architecture isn't in some long forgotten druid temple or some shit. No, it's in the center of town. And that's where we are, bitch. The town square, complete with the cafes, the Hotel Stat, even sushi, and a walk house just down the street. Hopefully neither the hotel or the cafe serve what many of you have heard of, the Swedish banana pizza, an abomination which the United States should genuinely consider getting into open war over. Although maybe a civil war first, since pineapple pizza is bad enough, but nothing compared to the satanic influence wide open and for sale in Swedish culture. Speaking of satanic, we have this extremely non-straight building called the Turning Torso in Malmö, Sweden. Could be a medieval torture device, or it could be a yoga pose. If you want to know how anti-skyscraper this part of Europe is, this building wasn't just the tallest in Sweden, but the tallest in all of Nordia, Sweden, Norway, Greenland, etc. That whole area. They really hate them. And if you like that hipster building, you'll probably like the Malmö Konsthal, an art gallery where you can express your artistic side. Claes Anshelm architecture this one, who is inspired by the Parisian sculptor Konstantin Brancusi. The museum has around 10 different exhibitions each year, which attract over 200,000 yearly visitors. Who knows what the f you have to do as an artist to make it into the art economy? And rich people invest in this because it seems to be one of the more profitable rising modern investments. But with how unbelievably subjective it is, what the hell are the actual metrics with which you get into this club of famous painters? My advice: change your name to something hard to pronounce, dress and behave strangely, and have the utmost conviction in the depth of your work, even if it's totally bullshit. Now, while we look at a third completed area done by the Nordic Baltic team located around the Malmö Town Hall, let me tell you, crime in Malmö has been on the rise. But that isn't a strange state to the city historically, who was fought over between the Swedish and Danish. Half the population died from the bubonic plague, from 3,000 to 1,500. It jumped up to 265,000 by 1971. Unfortunately, Sweden was one of the first countries to start experiencing population decline, which led to a furthering dedication to importing more immigrants. There was also some suburban house progress in this event and a completed school in Haganas, a town known for its ceramics industry. Very creative. And there's the first huge area of progress we're going to see in the city of Halmstad, the first of many. Now, something that doesn't seem very significant to most, but is particularly significant to me that happened in the history of this city, is in 1734, and that is, the medieval walls that were built to fortify the settlement from attackers were torn down. Indeed, in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, medieval fortified walls were torn down in cities all over the world. Like how they tore down that super sketch 1960s style elevated highway on the waterfront in Seattle. I actually drove on that thing in 2018, a few months before traffic was cut off for it to be demolished. Have you seen the way those things are torn down? A bulldozer just kind of goes at the concrete like mad, with a constant hose spraying. I was wondering what that was for, and I was thinking, breaking apart these structures is such a massive thing. Maybe it creates insane heat from friction and the water is to cool stuff down to keep things safe? But I definitely get distracted easily and I'm off topic. Anyways, what I'm saying is that it's really interesting that the transition to the modern world basically came with the realization of, well, things are getting peaceful enough that we don't need a giant wall around our town like we're in a zombie apocalypse anymore. Also, it's in the way of huge development because people are having lots of kids and things are growing. Let's get to work. And now walls surrounding towns are just a footnote in the tapestry of history. If you're wondering where this little turtle shell church is from, we're in Karlskrona, originally a military city that kicked farmers off their lands and forced settlers to relocate in order to create it. And the square you're seeing is the largest in Scandinavia. The old military architecture paired with the almost ancient at this point naval installations, in tandem with the epic festivals they have here like Skarsgård Fest and Lovmarknaden, are reasons why this place has tourist allure, along with its unique churches like Mr. Turtley over there, as well as the Fredrikskyrkan, the main feature adorning the area. A main feature in this area is this cool wavy square, because it's so cool and wavy. The town we're in, Salah, has a historical gold mine for, well, no, it's a silver mine, and they dug out tons of silver every year for centuries. Historically, 400 tons of silver and 40,000 tons of lead were extracted from the mines in this area, the silver mostly being used to create their historical silver coin currency. Tunnel threads of the mine eventually reached as deep as 1,000 feet, and its total length was over 12 miles. In the center of town is a small museum dedicated to the Impressionist painter born in this area, Ivan Agueli, in 1869. Now, I need your impression on this huge area. It's called Jönköping. All of these silly Swedish names, this one originating as a trading port, and the silly Swedish. It kept getting burned down until they learned their lesson and built walls around it. I've got to tell you, from all this study of Earth during this series, we really don't appreciate how good we got it. We're here, safe on the surface of Earth. Just above us is space and everyone's like, ooh, cool. No! It will straight up fucking kill you. And even with all our technology to allow someone to survive up there, they're still slowly dying from lack of gravity and getting blasted with radiation up there. Astronauts are known for getting health issues both during and long after their missions. So, right above us is death. Below us is death. And even in time, if you look just behind us, fucking death. Future? Every population center on Earth just 500 years ago was a speech and an excuse away from rallying together and murdering their neighbors en masse. It's just fucking insane. Even nice, peaceful Sweden that is so kind and welcoming. The team is like that too, by the way. I'm on their server now as I write this, going through the locations, and they're just continually nice to me in a really great way. Makes me want to visit. Unfortunately, they'll suck your bank account dry being so prosperous over there that everything is just going to cost so much. Maybe after the next American Civil War, they'll take me in as a refugee. If they did, one of the first places I would see is Gamla Stan, the island between bridges situated at the center of Stockholm in the river that bisects it. Being the heart of Swedish culture, many famous architects have shaped the area over history, with many interesting monuments. The island is not fully complete yet, but Team Nordic Baltic is hard at work on it. Completed works in this area include the Stockholm Town Hall, the Riddarholmen Church, and the German Church. This used to be a guild for the Germans and constructed in the 14th century. King Charles VIII himself was elected within the building in 1448 and was converted to a church in the preceding centuries. The neo-Gothic gargoyles from the church's exterior have been described as grotesque animals, since Sweden had seen nothing like it at the time of construction. The neighboring church in this area, Riddarholmen, had a Swedish congregation for centuries, until they dissolved the church's congregation in 1807 in order to just continue using the church for its historical purpose of burial for famous monarchs. But then later that traditional role the church itself filled was also discontinued in favor of the royal cemetery.
What would you say you do here?
Now, Gamla Stan isn't just part of Stockholm. It's where Stockholm started. 1,000 years ago, Sigtuna, the previous Swedish capital, was falling apart because, I don't know, take a guess. They were constantly getting attacked because it's the past and people are just savages. So get this, they hollowed out a log, filled it with gold, put it in the water, and waited to see where it landed. It landed in Gamla stan, and so the Swedes had chosen the location for their new capital. I don't know what the ancient Swedes were smoking, but I'll take all of it. Speaking of finding a spot to smoke, some people might be doing that at the Liseberg amusement park in Gothenburg, Sweden. During the PewDiePie Gothenburg event hosted by Build It 1-to-1, we worked on Gothenburg's downtown and Pewd's old neighborhood, but those were built by us, not Team Nordic Baltic. But the builders also randomly started working on Liseberg, the largest theme park in Sweden, and made a little bit of progress. But since then, Team Nordic Baltic have expanded it to complete a huge portion of the park, including all of these roller coasters, which, unlike others we've covered in this series, haven't killed anyone, and cost 2.6 million kroners to build. This place started as the Gothenburg Exhibition, a temporary festival with some rides to commemorate Gothenburg's 300th anniversary. But it was so successful, they decided to invest more to make it into a permanent theme park. They've got one of the terrifying wooden roller coasters here, called the Balder, along with the Helix, which has inversions and airtime spots. I hope airtime means loop rather than the carts being launched into the air without a track. And Lisebergbanan, which is a steel-trained theme roller coaster, along with a bunch of others. Bring the kids! Unless you don't have kids. Something else you can bring your imaginary kids to that would definitely be as entertaining is this car mechanic facility in the middle of a suburb in Gustavsburg. The lack of street view and some detailless shells of buildings leaves something to be desired here in terms of completion, but Nordic Baltic makes up for it by providing that high-rise building with an interior. Here lay the Utter Inn in Västerås, Sweden, the lonely house surrounded by nothing but the sea. You might be wondering, why show something so small and insignificant? Well, it was built by Mikael Genberg in June 2000. It's not just any old floating house, it has an underwater basement portion of the house in which you can go down and observe aquatic life. Given that this was all created and set up before the Airbnb boom, if they got in on that early, I'm sure it would have made a killing. Charge 10,000 a night. People will pay for it, and I don't know why. Changing the pace here to something short of terrifying is the Ring Knutsro, built by Nordic Baltic, a racetrack that was built in the 1960s, modified in the 1970s, and then modified again in the 1980s due to demands for more stringent regulations around the sport. Okay, here's the weirdest story I've seen yet. They call this artwork, built by Lars Vix, and it doesn't look like much in Minecraft, but if you take a look at the real photos of this thing, you'll get an understanding of exactly what we're dealing with here. It was made almost entirely out of driftwood, and they used thousands of nails to cobble it all together into this weird infrastructure. Swedish authorities didn't even know it existed until 1982. Since then, there's been a legal battle between the artist, the work's owners as it was later sold and sold again, and the authorities who want to remove it. The most recent ruling was a fine issued in 2018 after someone attempted to rebuild much of it after a portion of it caught on fire. In the original dispute between Vilks and the government, he claimed it existed in a micronation which would presumably exist outside the laws of Sweden. What a loophole. Something about this thing weirds me out, but it's also pretty cool. Coming back to the land of the normal, if you were interested in joining the Nordic Baltic team, they have a crew of professionals ready to teach you how it's done. Getting started on your first house in their trial zone here, the first builds of new builders created in this neighborhood in Lund. Lund is also called the oldest town in Sweden, but it's sort of not true. The settlers of Uppakara relocated here about 1,000 years ago, and Uppakara is known for having existed at least since 100 BC, but has evidence of dating back to the Iron Age, approximately 1,000 years before that. In these city squares, you could build your very first house in Sweden. Speaking of the Iron Age, copper mining is a historical foundation of the town of Röros, in which sits the Röros Cathedral Church, which replaced the older one 300 years ago. But what I bet you didn't know about the Röros was that there's reindeer. Now, you might think that the Norwegians just peacefully coexist with the reindeer in this magical little town of Christmas lights, snowy sights, and people and reindeer. No, they herd the reindeer. And can you guess for what purpose? getting ran over, Grandma f***ing ate the reindeer. I like their style. I should move here. Now, Helsinki is Norway's capital, and they've got the central square of the city done, whose central theme is the Helsinki Cathedral, a recent creation from 1830. What's really cool about this cathedral is if you look at these shots in real life, they've got roof statues of all 12 apostles in various action poses. They didn't include Judas for obvious reasons, though only 8 apostles feature on the roof and the other 4 are inside. So when I saw this, I was thinking, did they do it in Minecraft? Yeah, they did. They even angled bits of the diorite walls to reflect their body shape and orientation to exactly how it's like in real life. The whole thing was built by Roxuli 10. The central square, known as the Senate Square, other than it perhaps being haunted from being a graveyard prior to the square's construction, is not known for epic revolutions in South America or protests in Russia. They're a relatively peaceful people. Except for that one time in recent history where Sweden took over most of Finland, Norway, bits of Germany and Denmark, and started expanding into Russia. But anyone who tried to conquer Russia will tell you that it's a mistake to try. Russia kicked their asses, and Sweden shrank back to normal size. Arendal, Norway peaked sometime after this diminishing of Sweden's empire, with its reputation as a shipping state, previously having a simple wooden church, then being replaced by a stone church in 1830, but by 1880, at this economic high, they decided to destroy that one too and make it over again, this time with a competition of designs for being selected, made out of brick with the mint plating for the roofs, and look at that tower. Just f***ing look at it. As if God himself with his finger and thumb just f***ing whap, pulled it, stretched it. The surrounding progress in Arendal is really well done with complete street view. Fancy that. Congratulations to Nordic Baltic for a job well done. And actually, it's not over. Another congratulations to Nordic Baltic on this extremely satisfyingly perfectly square completed region. Very impressive perfect street view in Porvoo, Finland. Here is the larger part of a district neighboring its old town, a noted tourist destination, while Porvoo's settlement dates all the way back to the Stone Age. Imagine using stone tools and shit, sleeping in animal skin and fur, and living in this kind of weather. Unfathomable. The old town isn't some recreation, it's a preservation of centuries-old houses in medieval street pattern. They actually almost demolished the whole thing in the early 20th century for a new, vibrant, modern city center, but massive protest canceled the action, thank God. Check out this gigantic area. It's in a gigantic city, Tampere being one of the largest cities in Finland. Tiny historically, Tampere had give or take 1,000 citizens, mostly comprised of Tavastians, who were an ancient tribe of Finland. In Tampere for as long as it existed, but then like Nihilus just started absorbing the villages around it, growing more powerful. Invested in industry, textile factories stemming from its historical handcrafting roots, Tampere grew into a major Finnish power, the largest outside of the larger Helsinki municipality. Tampere is actually where Vladimir Lenin held the 1905 conference of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party at the Workers' Hall, where it was basically decided that they would start an uprising in Russia and kill anyone in their way. Actions which eventually led to the Finnish Civil War around the time of the October Uprising in Russia, in which elements of Finland fought each other to decide whether they were part of the greater communist uprising or not. The Finland socialists lost, and Tampere was bombarded by the Soviet Union sometime after. Still, for most of USSR's history, the Finns were direct customers and traders, and so after it all fell apart in 1991, the Finnish and particularly Tampere went through a 90s depression. It's weird how geography works. Your brain forgets that certain areas are so close to other areas that just seem so far away, but the reality is that Russia is just so completely gigantic and touches so many other countries, both directly in border and economically in commerce. Here's a special housing area called Kartanonkoski that was created as a result of a competition for the planning of a perfect garden village, with the concept originating from the Garden City movement in the UK. And in Denmark, they've created this beautiful river waterfront area in the town of Sonderborg. This pivot area holds the Sonderborg Castle, which doesn't exactly look very castle-y, more like a fort, or if you see the inside, kind of like a prison yard. Now, there was this nice guy living as king, Christian II. He was lured into an ambush and captured, then taken to Sonderborg Castle and held prisoner there for 17 years. See? Prison yard. I knew it. So this thing used to have towers, but amongst the chaos and such, it's been rebuilt a billion times. For some reason now, all towers have been taken down, and that's just the state of the castle now. And it's been a museum since 1921. The waterfront of the area is lovely. 5 stars. Way to go, Nordic Baltic. There's also been a notable area of progress in Køge, including and centered around the Køge Church, the oldest part of it being the tower, which dates back to the 14th century, even older than the town itself, and the oldest surviving houses, of which reach back to 1550. The church has historical works dating back as far too, kept securely, one would assume. The organs are more recent, dating from 1968 and 1999, leading up to the present, in which we have the crazy-ass Copenhagen Opera House in Copenhagen, Denmark. The most expensive opera house ever, built at 2.5 billion. This epic building sandwich has a main stage with 5 other stages directly connected to it. I can see where they got the architectural influence. Also very unusual, the architect involved after the project was done wrote a scathing book criticizing his entire experience designing it and lambasting the man who commissioned him to create the work. The opera house in Minecraft is directly across the river to much completed progress in Copenhagen, including Frederick's Church, this epic monologue famously known as the Marble Church, which looks incredible in real life and even cooler in Minecraft. Copenhagen has a lot of terrain carved out to be built in Minecraft, but has a long way to go, with much of the waterfront and most incredible buildings finished. It's off to an amazing start, and we're excited to see its progress continue. Okay, it's time for everyone's favorite section, Estonian Lighthouse Lightning Round. The Sorva Peninsula hosts the Sorv Saer, a lighthouse built to replace a square stone lighthouse that was destroyed during World War II. It was built in 1960 and is the host of summer camps and lots of other ecological activities. And the Loo Lighthouse, probably owned by a guy named Lou, I don't know, in the Gulf of Finland. And there's the Kari Island with the Kari Lighthouse, one of the most northern islands of Estonia. Historically, it's been operated by a family of lighthouse keepers over the century it's existed, but the last one left in 2002, and since then the lighthouse has been on an automatic process. In Lithuania, they have this very chic shopping mall complex with accompanying progress. Opened in 2004, and I'm not surprised given the style. Remember guys, this was my golden years. And that is everything Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark have ever done. I don't have much more to say other than I'm shocked at how much progress in the north that we have. A huge thanks to Team Nordic Baltic for sharing this epic and incredible 4-year lineage of 1-to-1 progress in the real world in Minecraft with us. A huge thanks to our Tier 5 patrons, Solly, Third Edit Man, and the newest kid on the block, Level, who we met when captured by Canadian pirates, and he bartered and negotiated for our release.